everybody, welcome back. I'm Bud Churchward, WB7FHC, and this video is going to be a little different than the ones you've seen me do before, but I think you'll enjoy it. Recently, I gave a presentation to the Mount Baker Amateur Radio Club's digital group meeting on Zoom. The presentation was on integrating your Arden and HamWAN networks with your home network. I think you might enjoy it. You can watch it with me now.
Bud, did you want to talk about the balloons? Are you ready to, or?
No, I have to change all my screens to talk about the
Oh,
balloons.
okay. All right.
Yeah, we're going to talk about networking and you're going to help me get it
Right.
right.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay. So if I push all the right buttons, let's see if we can make this work. Steve has put together how to do it on his GitHub page on integrating Arden and HamWAN and your home network all together so that they play nice together and you can do really cool things from any device in your house. And I said, I think I'll try to do that. And I started following Steve's directions. He's got some really good directions. You'll find them here on this website at his GitHub, and I've got to get my mouse to work. So step-by-step instructions, really, really well laid out, how to do everything. And I became like a guinea pig and started going through these things. And most of it worked really, really well. And occasionally we ran into a bump in the road, and Steve was really quick to whittle it down, and we've got it up and running. And here's the magic box. Oh, I should explain. I set up a light on a tripod to take this picture, and then I couldn't get the reflection of the light out of this part of the image. So this fancy grid that you see right here is not in the box. It's over on a tripod. This is the same box that Andy has been using for the nodes and the things that he's been setting up around the county. It's a really nice box. I got it on eBay. It was 60 some dollars. It's a 19-inch rack, and it's really slick. So in order to make all this work, I ordered 2 of these shelves that go in a 19-inch rack. They're only 8 inches deep, but it's perfect. It works really well for what I'm doing. They were about $16-17 a piece. And then I also ordered this power strip, which is also a surge protector, and it fastens itself to a 19-inch rack, and it's like $30, and it's a dream. It's just a dream come true in terms of what I'm able to do with it. If we look at the end of the rack, I've got the end panel removed here. You can see these 2 8-inch shelves right here. They're all set up, and both of them are full. They're loaded with all these little boxes that used to live behind my monitors with wires going everywhere and wall warts going everywhere, and it was basically a nightmare. The power strip isn't very deep. It's this thing right here, and it's configurable. You can make it be any angle you want, upside down, right side up. Do many things with it. We'll talk about this a little bit later. This is actually Raspberry Pi running an Apache server, and it's just sitting on the base of the rack. What makes all this work is this Edge Router X. It's a really smart router, and Steve has put instructions in there that show you how to go in and configure all of these ports. There's 5 of them here. They're labeled ETH0 through ETH4, and we plug a different part of my network into each one of those things. And then they talk together, and they have rules and stuff that they follow, and we see, what it is they're supposed to go, what they're doing. Let me show you. I skipped a
I love that router. Let me chime in. I love that router. I've been using
Yeah,
one of those for years. I love
it's
that.
fabulous.
Yeah.
So basically, here's what I'm doing. We got the edge router right here, and it's all configured to do the DHCP stuff. It's got policies and rules written in there, and it's got these masquerade NATs in there. So just a rough overview, we've got Comcast internet comes through my cable modem into ETH0, and the edge router takes over and dictates what it can do. I also have an Arden router, which is on the Arden network, and it comes in. The wide area network comes into ETH1, and it also has a domain name server on it. It has a Wi-Fi, which I'm using with a Zoom spot for my DMR hotspot, and I'll show you more about that. And then the local area network part there, if you look at Steve's GitHub page, he has that connected right up to ETH2, but I couldn't do that. Instead, I put in another switch. This is an 8-port Netgear switch. I'll show you the picture later, that runs a laptop, an Arden telephone, a camera that's out on the road that I'll show you in a few minutes, and an Apache web server. I've got 2 more ports left over for future year use. The HamWAN network coming in from Lookout Mountain comes in through this dish, and it's bridged over to ETH4. And it plays nice with all of these guys. And then finally, this third ETH3 goes down to my home network, where I have a 8-port switch in here that runs stuff in my house. I have 2 Wi-Fis, one at each end of the house. I've got my own PC here. I'm running my Nexus board on there, but pretty much the only thing I take off of it is time. And it's also, it's there for when I want to update software with Steve's tools. We have been Roku fans for years, and I took our old Roku when we upgraded to the new one, and I stuck it in here. And these are all going into an HDMI switch so that I can watch shows or something right here in my ham shack if I want to. This switch is bridged to, there's a hole in the wall that goes through my ham shack into my wife's office. And I figured this out. This was really cool. Instead of running wires to everything at the other end of the house, I ran one to another. This is a 5-port Netgear switch, and that my wife's PC is hooked up to that. Our network printer is hooked up to that, and then I punched another wire through a wall that goes from her office to our living room, where our main TV has its Roku. That we don't have cable television, we only use Roku, and they're all tied together, and there's some room for something to add if we need it. So that's pretty much, what we're doing with all of this stuff, and it's all being managed with this edge router. The software for this thing is really, really cool. But Steve has done a fabulous job of writing these instructions, and it's easier to follow instructions when they're in a command line window, because there's no question about where you should click or what you should do. So following his instructions, I have configured this box to do everything that it's supposed to do. And Steve, it's working great. This is the inside of the cabinet here. Up here, you'll see there's the edge router. That's it right there. I've made up all these cables, and I did 2 things. I got a bunch of these little end caps, and they're all different colors. So for example, I have 2 sections of red cable here. I just cut it in half. And so this one has a blue cap on it, and it goes over to the other end there, which also has a blue cap on it. And this one has a white cap on it, and it goes over here to the other one that has the red and white. So they're all discernible. You know which cable what end is going to what other end. But I also made these flags. I used my label maker, and so I would print out what I wanted it to be. I found out I couldn't put them on the cable. They would just unbend themselves and fall off. So I print the tag twice, and then I cut it. And then I crease it to find out where the middle is, and then I peel the sticky off, the backing off, and stick it together and make a flag. So almost every one of these cables is labeled. I've got one here to go back and label, but it's a unique cable. I'll explain that later. So we've got the cable modem here. Yeah.
How much did you cuss and swear when you found out that red cap was below the tag on that purple wire in the bottom left?
I just let it go. Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, it was like, oh geez, and you could see where I bunged it up, trying to see if I could get it over it. And maybe one of these days I'll get in there. That's the one that goes to my wife's office.
You'll be the only one that ever knows.
Yeah. So anyway, this is ETH0 here, which is going straight over to the cable modem, which is back here. This one right here is going to the Arden wide area network port there. The second one over here would technically be going to the local area port on the Arden, but I've got this ribbon cable comes with the Arden with the GL750 box. It just goes from here over to there. And then that red cable plugs into, so I'm using this switch. It's an 8-port switch, and I've filled up 6 of them to get there. So the Arden is on those two. This one right here is going down. See, it's yellow and green, goes to yellow and green here. That plugs everything into the home network. And then this one over here, the label's wrapped around. You can't see what's going on. It goes all the way out to the ham WAN dish right there. Now, this is a long run. Andy helped me with this. I had a piece of conduit that went from my garage to the crawl space under my house. What did we put, 150 feet of cable in there, Andy?
Yeah, it probably was a decent run.
So we did something really smart. Okay, when we set this up and we're going to fish this cable from my garage, which is out by the road, to my ham shack, I said, Andy, if we're going to do this, let's run 2 of them. This was before I even knew Steve was coming up with this plan. Okay, boy, do we use them both. So here's the Arden router, and here's the Arden switch. Now, these guys take off and run. I'm running a laptop that's on the Arden network right there. Right here, I'm connected to our Arden phone right here. These are cool voice over IP phones. We talk to people all over the country on this. In fact, did you ever figure out, Andy, can I call anywhere in North America on this or just the United States?
You know, and I need to follow up with that, and I'm going to add that to one of my questions. I need to reach out to the VoIP provider. I figured out why the VoIP line went down. They moved the server. I remember getting an email a long time ago and I didn't address it, and so I just got to figure that out. And yes, they have a nationwide plan, so that is an opportunity.
Well, we have a lot of fun with these phones. I just punch in fact, Andy, why don't you punch in 206 and we'll let them listen to it ring. This is not live video, so you won't see anything happen. But there's Andy. Can we create feedback, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's there. Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, he just called me. That was 3 digits. We call all the guys on Arden this way. That's pretty cool. What else have we got in here? So we got the phone. This one that says Garage 2 on it is one of the 2 lines that we ran out there. There's another label flag underneath here that you can't read that says camera. And it runs to a camera. And if I punch in the right stuff, you are looking at a live shot of that camera. That's what's going on outside my front yard right now. And I can turn the camera and we can see what's happening out there in the world. Sometimes it gets interesting. And that's running 24/7. Looks like we got people in the water.
Tide's in.
The tide is definitely in. Look at that. Okay. Don't you want to go swimming? That is really warm water, you guys. Really warm water. So you can see around the bay. And if you're on Arden, you can drive this camera. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. We'll put it back. There's a bunch of presets and you can have fun with it. So that's what that guy's doing. This one right here, you can't read the tag. This is an Apache server. It's running web pages. I gotta think about what is my next video. Let's just see what it is. That's the phone. Oh, there it is. That's the Apache server right there. And this is a Raspberry Pi with a draws board on top of it. And the only reason the draws board is on top of it is because I needed a power supply and I'm able to plug 12 volts in here.
Don't let them hear that. That's the only reason you use it.
Well, I had a lot of, well, I have them and it was there and it was convenient and it meant I didn't have to do all this other stuff, but it also means that I can run it on my emergency 12 volt power. So hang on a second while I
Is
cough.
that the unit that while you're coughing, is that the unit that hosts the drop anchor game?
We're getting there.
Nice.
We are getting to that. Yes, indeed. So let's see. One of the other things that the Arden router does is I turned the Wi-Fi on. That caused a lot of grief because I didn't give myself enough IP, a range of IP addresses to handle what happened when I turned the Wi-Fi on. And all of a sudden I was exceeding the limits that we had programmed into the Arden router. And Steve and I spent 2 hours yesterday sorting that out, and we got it all solved and figured out. We learned a lot. So the next guy is going to have the advantage of our misfortunes. But this is a Zoom spot, DMR hotspot. There's my DMR radio right there. I talk to my buddy Dave, WD0HHU, down near Dallas, Texas on this all the time. I leave it on 24/7 so he can pick it up in Texas and call me, and I will hear it, and it's going through the Arden network. This is my Nexus DRX, and we'll talk about it again in a little bit, and we'll talk about this guy over here in a little bit as well. But
that's a nice DMR talk group you got going there.
Yeah, it works. So this is a shot that I went out this afternoon. We had a nice sunny day. My flowers are in bloom. You can see the Hamwan dish right there, and you can see the camera is located right here, ready to go. I think I have a close-up shot on the camera, and that's what we call pan, tilt, zoom. You can swing it around, point it, zoom in 20 times. And that's the same camera, isn't it, that you put on King Mountain?
Yeah, and we thought the one at King broke, so we bought a third. So we have a bunch of those now.
Yeah, they're cool cameras, and they have some issues. You pretty much have to use a Windows machine to drive the camera. If you want to see what's going on, we can make that happen on any platform that you use. But if you want to get in and swing it around and drive it and peek into canoes and stuff like that, you'll have to have a Windows machine. So this is the front end of my Arden node right here, and I do believe I can bring up a live version of it. We'll go back to the camera and just click this tab here. So when you go into Arden, you have neighbors, and then your neighbors have neighbors. So what you see right in this list right here are my neighbors. And we're doing something interesting thing here. My Arden is running through the HamWAN dish, but not everybody is using HamWAN. Not everybody has it. So you can put stuff on the internet as well. And so to get into the rest of the mesh, to get in there, we have built a tunnel to the SAR building at W7ECG. And so my Arden node goes through the HamWAN and then the interwebs and ends up at the SAR building. Well, we've gone in and built some more tunnels from me. And so here's Keith, KF7DRV. He's tunneled into me so he can get in back through HamWAN and get into the rest of the network. Here's Peter. He's in our group somewhere listening. He's got a GL750, same as I do. He's in Briar. Peter can drive that camera. He does. Now this is where it gets fun. WD0HHU. This is our buddy Dave. We call him Tex because when we get on FSQ in the morning, there are so many Daves. We have to give some of them different names. So he's from Texas and he's moved back to Texas. He lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we have a tunnel to him. Dave lives 1.5 miles from a dormitory, a 20-story dormitory on a Texas Women's University that's just down the road from him. On top of that dormitory is a slew of antennas, amateur radio repeaters and whatnot, and they have Arden nodes up there. So Dave right now is working on connecting, getting a connection going. He just moved into this house so that he will be able to link into the Dallas-Fort Worth Arden network. Dallas-Fort Worth has been running Arden way longer than we have, and they have an extensive network there. When we make that link, this list here of all these places we can go is going to explode. They know we're coming, and they're excited to have us join them.
I can make it explode right now if you want. I can give you the entire East Coast.
Yeah, you can do that. So Arden is a lot of fun. And Chris, who's listening here somewhere, he's our buddy. He is one of my neighbors here in Birch Bay, has moved down to Phoenix, Arizona. And we will be putting a tunnel into Chris soon, I hope.
I just traded an email or two. I don't see him in here right now, but since we've been on this meeting, he just got the firmware flashed and he's getting the little tidbits of the node configured, so he will be ready to follow up and get the tunnel activated.
Oh yeah, Andy, we're going to have to do a Zoom session just on Arden one of these days. So these are all of these things. You can see all the services and everything that everybody has hooked up on their Arden node, and you can see that there's my router, the ERX, here's my switch, there's my phone, but two of these devices are things you can click on. And I wanted to experiment with serving a web page, and so I added my Apache server there, and if you click on Drop Your Anchor, this is a game that I wrote in HTML5 several years ago. I beefed it up for Arden, and it has to do with understanding primary colors and secondary colors. It's called Drop Your Anchor, and these are buoys, and you click on one and it falls, and it cancels out the colors. The object of the game is to remove all of these targets. So, and this is the lowest level. It's the training level.
Wait a second. I wasn't able to pass this one.
You would get past this one? Oh, come on. I got a high score of 1100. But anyway, if I drop orange on yellow, it goes through because yellow is part of the color orange. I can drop red on red and they disappear. Now, if I drop blue on green, the blues are subtracted but leaves a yellow. So I have to drop a yellow on a yellow. Now I could drop a green on a green. Now I could drop a red on the orange, you know, and have a yellow, but I'm going to drop a purple on the orange. Now, the only thing that purple and orange have in common is red. So the reds are going to disappear and leave me with a blue and a yellow, which is the same as green. So they're both gone. And now I can win the game. That's how you win it, Andy.
Never done it.
Just like that. So let's go on here. There's the mesh again. Here's another shot of the box with the door closed. Now, I don't know if I explained this to you. My ham shack is kind of small. It's like 11 by 11. And to make it look bigger, I have a large mirror on one end of my ham shack. So it looks like I have two of these, but it's only one. That's a mirror right there. Okay? But it also means that because I have to sit with my back to the view of the water and stuff and the San Juan Islands, I can work at my desk and look out the window that's behind me. But there's the box. It's all fancy. I've got it at about eye level. And it's really convenient. When Steve and I were working yesterday, he kept telling me to power things down and power things up. And I was able to just read what it says here on the wall wart, pull it out, put it back in. It wasn't a tangle of wires behind my monitors, which has been the case for the last 8, 10, 12 years. This is the underside of my case. And I decided to, hey, this would be a good place to mount a speaker. So I mounted a speaker to the bottom of that case, and this speaker goes to my 220 radio. I monitor the Mount Constitution 220 repeater at 224.48 24/7, and that's the speaker that and typically that's the only place I go and speak with a voice on ham radio. Everything else is digital or something else. Again, you can see this is a mirror, so you can see the back of the speaker. You can see the back of the clock and the back of my computer. That speaker comes down to this board right here, which I had to build. There's an Atmega chip in there. And this little switch right here, I painted the button white so my wife could spot it. I call this an XYL switch. When my radio starts talking and she doesn't want to listen to it, she has a tendency to come into the room and start twisting knobs. She makes the sound go away. And then 2 days later, I'm going like, I haven't heard anything on the repeater in a long time. What's going on? And it's on a completely different frequency, or the volume's turned down, or, you know, and I didn't know. So if she pushes that button, it mutes my speaker for 60 minutes and then turns it back on again. And she does that, Peter, every time you start talking, just so I want to let you know. But she especially does it if she hears me talking and I'm not home. That bugs her. And so again, here it's powered from the 5 volts that I took off of the DRX. It powers this whole circuit, and I've got a voltage regulator there. And I guess I wouldn't have needed the voltage regulator if I had taken it originally from there. I got it from a wall wart first time around. So that's that. Last night around 10:45, I came in. I just love looking at these lights, and they're blinking and they're doing all this cool stuff. And I even am starting to understand, thanks to Steve, I'm understanding what they do and how they work. It's really cool. So that's my network. Thanks for letting me share.
Hey, Bob, questions.
Sure.
What did you have to increase your Arden DHCP up to? 29 or 13?
Well, I looked at it and said, we're not going to do this twice. We went to 29.
Okay.
It doesn't cost anything, and I don't want to do it again.
Okay.
And Steve was I owe him so much. His wife came in after about 2 hours and said, how much longer are you going to be? But what we learned was you really got to get into the camera in order to change its IP. You can't do it through any of the normal ways. And because we had changed all the other IPs, we weren't able to get into the camera. But we found the path. We got it. As soon as we fixed it, we got the IP address right. At one time, and I don't understand this, Steve, at one point in time, it had 2 IP addresses.
Well, it didn't have 2 IP addresses really, but it had an IP address from the previous subnet, and we both thought that the camera was set up for DHCP, meaning it would get its IP address automatically, right? And so we kept clinging to that belief, and then we finally realized that it stubbornly refused to get a new IP address.
And I have figured out now, Steve, that really is my fault, because when I was configuring it originally, I thought if this IP address ever changes, I'm going to have to redo all the stuff on the Arden network. And so I unchecked the box that said to use the DCHP server. And so maybe I should not have done that. Or now that we have it fixed, should I go back and uncheck it?
Well, we did uncheck it.
Okay.
When we put it to the new, when we deployed the new subnet, we did check it. So it is using DHCP now, but we made a reservation for it in the Arden router. So it always gets the same IP address.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
now,
that's...
Bud, before you go, are you prepared to help me so I don't have to bug Steve so I can go up to from 13 to...
I will... Okay. So did you set yours at 5 also?
No, mine's at 13 right now. I want to go up to 29. If you found
13 will probably be enough, don't you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bud could have gotten by with 13 with a couple left over, even with all this stuff that he's got in his network.
Galen, do you think you'll be turning the Wi-Fi on the Arden? I mean, you're not a DMR guy. I did that so that I want to run all my ham stuff through HamWAN, and I wanted to be able to use, you have to use Wi-Fi to get to your hotspot, the Zoom spot.
Yeah. You know, I mean, who knows what I'm going to do? You know, I keep following you guys. You know, eventually I come into compliance. I mean, you know, yes, I'm resisting DMR with everything I can, but sometimes it's hard.
Well, I want to say a couple things about Bud's presentation. First of all, excellent presentation, Bud. Very, very well done.
Thank you.
And I think that your idea of combining the cable color and the hood for the RJ45 plug, that is very clever for identifying individual cables. I'm going to keep that in mind and deploy that elsewhere. And lastly, while helping Bud during the deployment here, I introduced or added and changed many things in my procedure that it became obvious to me weren't obvious to him and most likely wouldn't be obvious to other hams who are going through this process. So I did several rewrites and clarified certain things based on Bud's input. So, and he had some great ideas for the document. So that was, I thank you very much for helping out with that, Bud.
It was a pleasure working with you. Galen, it did take days. It was this whole networking thing is several days of work. And one of the challenges is that I have other people who live with me and depend on my internet. And there are periods of time when I have to take everything down. And so I got to make sure that that's not during Wednesdays and Friday mornings Pilates, you know, and stuff like that. I had to keep the network running for my roommate.
Yes.
And we pulled that off. You know?
I will say though that the ERX configuration, the edge routers in general, Rochelle said that she's using one as well. And I know, let's see, we are using one at the SAR building, and I've been using them for years. Here I have 3 different models of the Edge router that I use. They are fantastic, inexpensive routers that are extremely well supported, so I highly recommend them. I know that Gayland is deploying this now, and we ran into a big problem in Gayland's case. He doesn't have cable modem service. He has DSL service, which throws an added complication into the mix in that he has to use a protocol called PPPoE. It's point-to-point protocol over Ethernet, which is an authentication mechanism that authenticates his DSL modem to his service provider, which is Ziply. And we had all kinds of issues with how to make that work correctly. And he was dealing with the same thing that Bud was, in that his wife relied on internet connectivity, so there were only certain windows of time we had to work through. So based on Gayland's experience with dealing with PPPoE, I added yet more instructions to the document for those individuals who have to work with that protocol at their QTH. So thank you, Gayland, for your input on that part of it.
That pretty much concludes my presentation during the middle of the Digital Club meeting last week. But you might be interested in seeing what else was going on in the meeting. And to make that possible, I have posted the entire meeting. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. And I've posted it here as an unlisted video on YouTube, so it probably won't show up on a list. But if you look in the comments for this video here, you should be able to find a link that you can click on. You can view the whole all hour and 15 minutes of it. We went on from this discussion here to discussing Pico balloons, which is an interesting topic. And there was some interesting discussion that happened before my presentation on networking began. So thank you for watching. Of course, if you're new to my channel, I hope you'll click subscribe, and maybe we'll see you here again. Thank you.